Okay, so this is day 4, I think, of me recording myself with my French on a morning. It is, what is the time? It's 9:26. I got up a bit late this morning, but yep, this morning we're going to be doing present actions, ER and RE verbs. Anybody who knows anything about French knows how confusing some of these French rules could be, especially with the different endings of verbs. So we're gonna go through ER and RE verbs, and it will be much like the format of the videos from the previous day. So let's go. Bonjour, welcome to today's lesson. This one is all about verbs or action words. You already know how to use être, to be, and avoir, to have, which is two very important verbs in French. Now we're going to cover two whole categories of regular verbs, ER verbs and RE verbs. By the end of this lesson, you'll have the tools you need to be able to say all kinds of things in French. Sorry, I didn't highlight it before. This is a lesson I did before. Again, as I mentioned in my previous videos, I'm just going over some of the lessons which I think are important to really know by heart, and also some of the lessons which I think would help me improve in my weak areas. So sometimes verbs is one of my weak areas, especially with the conjugation. And also I did être, to be, and avoir, to have, multiple occasions. I did that over. So I don't know if I will do it over, but for the benefit of the recording and trying to make ensure that things are a bit comprehensive, because right now I'm just doing them I'm just doing the course not in the correct flow, because there's a particular flow that you're supposed to do it in. But right now I'm just jumping here, there, things which I know I need to work on. So yeah, let's continue with the lesson. Understanding infinitives. You'll remember that from the lesson on être, to be, that the infinitive of a verb is the neutral version of the verb. You'll remember from the lesson on être, to be, that the infinitive of a verb is the neutral version of the verb. It is the most basic unconjugated form and therefore has no tense, such as past, present, or future. You'll also recall that in English, infinitives generally start with the word to in front of them, but in French, no word for to is included. You can still easily identify infinitives in French though, thanks to their endings. Regular French verbs typically have one of three endings: ER, RE, or IR. We'll be looking specifically at regular verbs that end in ER and RE. Below are some common verbs with these endings. Okay, first word.
Parler.
Let's get some volume.
Parler.
First word, parler. Parler. I don't think my pronunciation was good. Let's go again.
Parler.
Parler. Parler. Good. Let's listen. Parler. Parler.
Parler.
Parler. Okay, next word.
Expliquer.
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 Expliquer. Expliquer. Good pronunciation. Let's listen. Expliquer. Okay, sorry, I didn't say what parler means. So parler means to speak or to talk. Expliquer means to explain. Okay, let's continue. The next word, aimer, which means to like or to love.
Aimer.
Aimer. Let's work on my pronunciation. Aimer. Good pronunciation. Let's listen. Aimer. Aimer.
Aimer.
Aimer. Next word, demander, which means to ask or to ask for.
Demander.
Demander. Let's work on my pronunciation. Demander. Et voilà. Demander. Demander. C'est très bien fait.
Demander.
Next word, travailler,
Travailler.
which means to work. Travailler. C'est très bien. Travailler. Notice how the ER ending is always pronounced with the same, no, notice how the ER ending is always pronounced the same way as E accent. That is like the A. So in brackets they have EY. It's like you say E in French, like A in hey, minus the Y. So that's the sound you're going for with the E. It's not accent. I need to know what it is in French, because in Spanish it's E, the accent on the top, like a tilde. I don't know if it's the same thing in French, but I'll confirm. So for my next lesson now, I'll be saying the right thing. Okay, let's continue with the lesson. The next word, the next verb, entendre.
Entendre.
Entendre, which means to hear. Entendre. C'est très bien. Entendre. Let's listen.
Entendre.
Okay, that sounds extremely authentic. Okay, next word, perdre, which means to lose.
Perdre.
Perdre. There's a bit of a perdre. Okay, I got it. Let's listen.
Perdre.
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 Perdre. Okay. Perdre. Boom. Perdre.
Perdre.
Perdre. And the reason I'm saying boom is because when I said the word, it registered immediately. Again, perdre means to lose. Okay, next word, reprendre. Reprendre.
Répondre.
Répondre. And the reason there's a stress on the reprendre is because there's a tilde on the, no, sorry, there's an accent on the E. Répondre, which means to answer or to reply. Répondre. Good pronunciation, let's listen. Répondre. Répondre.
Répondre.
Répondre, which means to answer or to reply. Next word, entendre. Attendre. Attendre.
Attendre.
Attendre, which means to wait or to wait for. Attendre. Let's listen. Attendre. Okay, which is good pronunciation. Next word is vendre.
Vendre.
Vendre, which means to sell. Vendre.
Vendre.
Let's listen. Vendre. Good pronunciation again. Vendre. Vendre. Okay. C'est très bien. And vendre again is to sell. So conjugating regular verbs. Just as you saw with être, to be, and avoir, to have, verbs get conjugated. That is, they change according to who the subject of the sentence is, and according to the tense of the sentence as well. However, être, to be, and avoir, to have are special cases. They are irregular verbs, which means that they don't follow the normal patterns when they are conjugated. Regular verbs, on the other hand, always follow the same pattern. So once you've learned those patterns, you can conjugate any regular verb you come across. The patterns are determined by the different ending types. So in other words, ER verbs follow one pattern, and RE verbs follow another. So let's learn the basics for conjugating a regular verb. The verb stem. In order to conjugate any verb, you first need to find the verb stem. The stem is the part of the verb that usually doesn't change no matter what endings you stick onto it. You get the stem simply by taking the infinitive of the verb and removing its ending. Take a look at the examples below. Okay, so to describe the table has 4 columns, and each column, the first one has verb, the second one has English, the third one has ending, and the fourth one has the stem. Okay, so for the purpose of this exercise, what they did is that they use the verbs that we mentioned before, that we went through before. So the first one is aimer. So in the column of verb, we have aimer, we have manger, we have attendre, and we have perdre. So aimer is to like, the English translation, to like or to love. Manger is to eat. Entendre is to hear, and perdre is to lose. So the ending is the first two, aimer and manger, is ER verbs. The last two, entendre and perdre, is RE verbs. So the stem for aimer is AIM because the word is spelled AIMER. The stem for manger is MANG because the word is spelled MANGER. So in these two instances, we drop the ER for the aimer and manger. For entendre, to hear, the ending is RE. For perdre, to lose, the ending is RE. So the stem for entendre, it's ENTEND, and we drop the RE. And we have perdre, we drop the RE, and we have PERD as the stem. I hope that was clear. Once you have the stem by itself, which is what I mentioned before, all you have to do is add a new ending to conjugate it. Once you get used to it, conjugation will become natural. You won't even need to know what a verb means in order to conjugate it with the different subjects. Endings in present. Today we'll be looking at the endings that you use in the present, or le présent en français. Le présent is very similar to the present in English, although it's not exactly the same. The main difference is that in English, we can use either a simple form of the present, example, I eat, or a continuous form of the present, example, I am eating. In French, this distinction does not exist. There is only one present form. This means that je mange in French, present, can be translated to I eat or I am eating in English. Both meanings are possible. So just to say that again, je mange can either mean I eat or I am eating in English. Je mange in French can either mean I eat or I am eating in English. Now let's get into those ending patterns. There are many similarities between the different verb forms, so keep an eye out. Conjugating ER verbs. What we call ER verbs are simple to define. They end in letters ER. There are far more regular ER verbs in French than there are regular RE or IR verbs. So this is a key verb type to pay attention to. We're going to use parler, to speak or to talk, as an example to show you the ER verbs endings. Remember, to find the stem of parler, you just have to remove the ER ending. This leaves you with PARL. Below you can see the singular forms of the verb in the present. Okay, so there's another column with the first column is the pronoun plus parler, and then there's the English translation. Okay, so they're giving you the singular form of the verb in the present tense. So we have the singular pronouns that we would use, and you will get the singular form of the verb in the present tense. So for example, the unconjugated word is parler, PARLER. So for the first one, we have je parle, which is JEPARLE. Again, we drop the ER, and je parle is formed, okay? And je parle means I speak. Then we have tu parles, which is TU, then PARLES. So with the tu, it always ends with an S, okay? We have il parle, which is he speaks. We have elle parle, and we have on parle. Okay, so from the top, je parle, I speak. Tu parles, you speak. Tu parles ends with ES. Il parle ends with E, which means he speaks. Elle parle, which means she speaks. And on parle, which means one speaks. So I will get the pronunciation to play just for clarity.
Je parle.
Je parle.
Tu parles.
Tu parles.
Il parle.
Il parle.
Elle parle.
Elle parle.
On parle.
On parle. You'll notice that the forms for je, il, elle, and on all take the same ending, which ends with e. So we drop the er and we have e for those singular pronouns. Okay. The form for tu, on the other hand, takes the ending es. Be sure to memorize this pattern carefully, since it will apply to every regular er verb that you come across. It is also important to note that these endings, e and es, are both completely silent. You may hear native speakers make a silent sound at the end of the verb forms like parle and parler when they are going slowly and enunciating like our speaker in the table above. However, that's just a bit of air that lets them pronounce the final consonant sound clearly. So I will play it again just for clarity, okay?
Je parle.
Je parle. You can hear the parle at the end, the e. Je parle.
Je parle.
Je parle.
Tu parles.
Tu parles.
Il parle.
Il parle.
Elle parle.
Elle parle.
On parle.
On parle. Okay, let's continue. Also, keep in mind that the S in the tu form will always remain silent, even when it's followed by a vowel sound. That's because of the rule that the tu form of a verb should never undergo la liaison with a word following it. So normally, you will do la liaison if the verb, which comes after the noun, starts with, normally you will do la liaison when the noun starts with a vowel and the verb comes before the noun, okay? However, the rule says with the tu form of the verb is that it must never undergo la liaison. So just something to take note of. Now we're going on to do the plural forms of the verb for parler, and we have the plural pronouns. We have a table with the plural pronouns on the left, and we have the English translation on the right. Okay, so the first version of parle for we speak is nous parlons. Nous parlons.
Nous parlons.
Nous parlons, which means we speak. The second one is vous parlez, which is you formal / plural speak.
Vous parlez.
Vous parlez. Then we have il parle, which is they speak.
Il parle.
Which is they speak masculine. And we have elle parle, which is they speak feminine.
Elle parle.
Okay. So in these instances, we drop the er at the end of parle. And for nous parlons, we add ons. So the word is spelled Parlons. Then for vous parlez, we drop the er and we have Parlez. So this is for the you formal / plural. This is how it would be spelled. Parlez. For il parle, it is spelled Parlent, right? So il parle will be ILS Parlent. We drop the ER and we add ENT. For elle parle, which is the feminine version of they, we will drop the ER and we will add ENT, much like the masculine version before it, okay? All right. Above, you can see that the nous form ends in ONS and the vous form ends in EZ. This seems familiar, since the same endings were actually used with avoir to have. Again, I didn't do that lesson online, but maybe I'll do it because of this one. The il and the l form, on the other hand, ends in ENT, and there's something a little tricky about this. This ending is also silent. This means that il parle, he speaks, actually sounds identical to il parle, they speak, okay, which is true. Elle parle, she speaks, sounds exactly like elle parle, they speak feminine. Okay? You'll still be able to tell what people mean though, thanks to the context. So, because they sound so similar, it's important to understand the context. So, when you're talking to someone in French, be sure to pay attention to what the context of the conversation is. Especially like in my situation, I am I'm learning. I'm trying to absorb as much French as I can, and sometimes it could be a bit confusing if I don't pay attention to the context. Yes, it takes a lot of mental energy to pay attention when speaking French, but this is the only way that I can reach my goal of speaking a high level of good French. One final thing to mention about these plural verb forms is that you don't have to worry about doing la liaison, the liaison between them and any vowel initial word that follows them. La liaison doesn't normally occur with most verbs. On that note, let's see these verb forms in action. Okay, so the first sentence is Elle parle à son ami. She is talking to her friend. This is the translation in English. Elle parle à son ami. Okay, let's listen to his pronunciation.
Elle parle à son ami.
Okay, let me record myself. Elle parle à son ami. Again, elle parle à son ami is she is talking to her friend. Elle parle à son ami. Elle parle à son ami. Okay. Next phrase, nous parlons français. Nous parlons français.
Nous parlons français.
Okay, and nous parlons français means we speak French. Nous parlons français. Listen to my pronunciation. Nous parlons français. Pas mal. Next phrase, il parle très vite. Il parle très vite, which means they speak very well. They speak very quickly, sorry. They speak very quickly. Il parle très vite.
Il parle très vite.
Il parle très vite. Il parle très vite. Okay. So in this instance, because you're not seeing what I'm seeing on your screen, il parle très vite. Maybe you hear that and you may think, okay, is it that he speaks very quickly or is it that they speak very quickly? So because I can see it, I know it's they speak very quickly, but I'm saying that just to reinforce what was said before, that understanding the context is important. Okay, next phrase. Vous parlez fort. Vous parlez fort.
Vous parlez fort.
Vous parlez fort, which means you speak loudly. You speak loudly. Let's work on my pronunciation. Vous parlez fort. Let's listen. Vous parlez fort, which means you speak loudly. Next phrase. Elle parle beaucoup. Elle parle beaucoup.
Elle parle beaucoup.
Elle parle beaucoup.
Elle parle beaucoup.
Elle parle beaucoup, which means they talk a lot. Elle parle beaucoup. Again, and this is another example, much like il parle très vite before, elle parle beaucoup, because I'm seeing the translation is they talk a lot. But if you don't understand the context, you may think it's saying she talks a lot. Okay, so again, context is important. Je parle anglais. Je parle anglais, which means I speak English.
Je parle anglais.
Je parle anglais. Je parle anglais. Okay. Next sentence. Tu parles peu. Tu parles peu. Tu parles peu.
Tu parles peu.
Tu parles peu, which means you don't talk much. Tu parles peu.
Tu parles peu.
Tu parles peu. Tu parles peu. It registered as tu parles un peu, but tu parles peu. Tu parles peu. Yeah, I need to cut it. Tu parles peu. Let's listen. Tu parles peu. Tu parles peu, which means again you don't talk much. Next sentence. On parle du ton. On parle du ton, which means We are talking about the weather. On parle du temps.
On parle du temps.
On parle du temps.
On parle du temps.
On parle du temps. On parle du temps. Okay. On parle du temps. Okay. Again, on parle du temps, which means we are talking about the weather. Next sentence. Il parle trois langues. Mais j'espère. Il parle trois langues, which means he speaks three languages. I said j'espère because I'm like, I hope. Bientôt, soon. Il parle trois langues.
Il parle trois langues.
Il parle trois langues. Il parle trois langues.
Il parle trois langues.
Il parle trois langues. Okay. Il parle trois langues. Good pronunciation. Il parle trois langues. Again, il parle trois langues means he speaks three languages. Excellent. Let's try out some sentences with the ER verbs so that you get used to applying the same rules to them. Below, you'll find examples of the verb travailler, which means to work, aimer, which means to like or to love, and demander, which means to ask or to ask for. So, first sentence, sorry. Mes parents travaillaient très dur. Mes parents travaillaient très dur.
Mes parents travaillent très dur.
Right. Mes parents travaillent très dur. So, travail is spelled Travailler, and we drop the ER and we add ENT. So, mes parents travaillent très dur, which means my parents work very hard. Let's work on my pronunciation. Mes parents travaillent très dur.
Mes parents travaillent très dur.
Okay, I need to do that over because the dur wasn't pronounced properly.
Mes parents travaillent très dur.
Très dur. Okay. Mes parents travaillent très dur. I'm not saying the last part of the sentence correctly.
Mes parents travaillent très dur.
Très dur.
Mes parents travaillent très dur.
Okay, let's try. Mes parents travaillent très dur. Ah, c'est bon. Mes parents travaillent très dur. Okay, mes parents travaillent très dur. Which means my parents work very hard. Next sentence. J'aime la France.
J'aime la France.
Which means I like France. Let's go. J'aime la France. C'est une bonne prononciation. Let's listen. J'aime la France. J'aime la France, which means I like France. Next phrase. Sorry. I'm not giving any breakdown. So, j'aime la France. The verb here is aimer, A-I-M-E-R, which is the unconjugated version of the verb. However, for j'aime la France, because aimer starts with a, we had to do l'élision. We had to drop the E from the je, which would represent I. So it's spelled J apostrophe A-I-M-E, La France. And because we're talking about I like France, we have to drop the R and it's just A-I-M-E. So to spell the word entirely, it's J apostrophe A-I-M-E, La France. Okay, next phrase, tu demandes l'heure. Tu demandes l'heure, which means you are asking for the time.
Tu demandes l'heure.
Okay. Tu demandes l'heure. Great pronunciation. Tu demandes l'heure. Tu demandes l'heure. Continuing with the class. Note that you can use demande. You can use demander to mean either to ask or to ask for. This means that in sentences like the one above, you don't have to add a word for in French. It's already understood, okay? Saying to like and to love. let's take a quick break from conjugations for a moment to talk about a very common ER verb that you've seen a few times now in this lesson, aimer. The verb means both to like and to love, which new learners can find a bit confusing. Here's how it works. As a basic rule, aimer can be understood as to love when it is used with people, and as to like when it is used with actions or things. Below is one example of each, including a sentence that you'll recognize. Okay. First sentence.
J'aime Agnès.
J'aime Agnès. I love Agnès. This is what this means. J'aime Agnès. Okay.
J'aime Agnès.
J'aime Agnès. I want to do that again. J'aime Agnès. Great. Good pronunciation. Second phrase, j'aime marcher, which means I like to walk.
J'aime marcher.
J'aime marcher. Okay, let's listen to my pronunciation. J'aime marcher. Okay, so to reinforce what was said before, j'aime Agnès, because we're using it with a person, it is I love Agnès. But because we're using in the second sentence, because we're using it with an action like marcher, it's translated to I like to walk. Okay. Next sentence, j'aime la France.
J'aime la France.
J'aime la France. No, that's a good pronunciation. J'aime la France. This is good, which means I like France. But what if you just like a person and not love them? In that case, you can add bien, which means well, and say aimer bien, to like well. So for example, in the first sentence that we covered above, we said j'aime Agnès, which means I love Agnès. But if you want to say I like Agnès, you say j'aime bien Agnès.
J'aime bien Agnès.
J'aime bien Agnès. J'aime bien Agnès. Okay, let's listen. J'aime bien Agnès. Okay. And to say that you love an action or a thing rather than like it, you can use the ER verb adorer to adore or to love. So, j'adorerais marcher. No, j'adore marcher.
J'adore marcher.
Which means I love to walk. J'adore marcher. J'adore marcher. I love to walk. J'adore marcher. J'adore marcher. And we have j'adore la France.
J'adore la France.
There's a way he stresses on it. J'adore la France, which is, I think, very French. J'adore la France. J'adore la France. Okay. J'adore la France. Good. Now back to conjugating. Before we move on to the RE verbs, let's talk briefly about a couple of exceptions to the ER pattern we just covered. Exemptions with verbs ending in GER and CER. The verb endings GER and CER have a soft G and a soft C sound, respectively, because the letters G and C are directly followed by the vowel E. So, for example,
Manger.
manger, manger, which means to eat. And we have commencer,
Commencer.
commencer, which means to begin or to start. Commencer. When verbs like these take the new ending, which is ONS for like we, though, then the G and the C are no longer followed by an E. This means that something extra needs to happen in order to keep the G and C soft. What happens is pretty simple. Verbs ending in GER essentially take the ending EONS instead. so that the E is present to keep the G soft. Verb endings in CER still take the usual ending ONS, but the C receives a cedilla to keep it soft, becoming C cedilla. So the cedilla in French, it's C, and there's like a little thing at the bottom of it. I should have a paper here that I can show you. Et voilà. So it looks like this. Looks like this right here. You know, you could Google it online. I just wanted to make it visible, but you can Google it online. The C cedilla in French, and I'm sure you can find it. Okay. Other than these spelling changes to the new form, everything else stays the same with these verbs. We've put together some example sentences below so that you can practice this using the verbs manger, to eat, ranger, to tidy up or to put away, commencer, to begin or to start, and lancer, to throw. Watch out for those changes. So we have nous mangeons de légumes. So if you're saying we eat vegetables, so nous mangeons de légumes is we eat vegetables. For manger, because it ends in GER when we're using the new form, which is we, right, in English, you don't drop the ER. You just drop the R and you have ONS. This lesson might be a bit confusing, I'm sorry. But nous mangeons de légumes. We eat vegetables, okay?
Nous mangeons des légumes.
Nous mangeons des légumes. Good pronunciation. The next phrase is nous rangeons la chambre, which means we are tidying up the room. So ranger, it ends in ER. But when we're using the we form, which is nous in French, we will drop the R and we will add ONS. So the word is spelled RANGEONS. Okay?
Nous rangeons la chambre.
Nous rangeons la chambre. Good pronunciation, which means we are tidying up the room. The next phrase is nous commençons le jeu. Nous commençons le jeu.
Nous commençons le jeu.
Nous commençons le jeu means we begin the game. So commencer ends with CER, and the verbs that end with CER, we put the cedilla on the C, which you should Google, and we have ONS. So nous commençons le jeu, we begin the game.
Nous commençons le jeu.
Nous commençons le jeu. Okay. The last sentence is nous lançons la balle, which means we throw the ball. Nous lançons la balle.
Nous lançons la balle.
Nous lançons la balle. So lançons is spelled, ends with CER because the unconjugated verb is lancer, LANCER. But for the verbs that end in CER, we drop the R, we add the E, and we put a cedilla on the C. So the new word is LANC cedilla ONS, la balle. So nous lançons la balle. Nous lançons la balle. And nous lançons la balle, which means we throw the ball. Okay? So, first phrase, first sentence, nous mangeons de légumes, we eat vegetables. The second phrase, nous rangeons la chambre, which means we are tidying up the room. Nous commençons le jeu, which means we begin the game. And nous lançons la balle, which means we throw the ball. Conjugating RE verbs. Regular verbs that end with the letters RE are referred to as RE verbs. They have their own set of rules for conjugation that is different from that of ER verbs. However, you'll notice some similarities between them. Below, we'll show you all the different forms of RE verbs that they take in the present using the verb vendre, to sell, as an example. Once again, we'll begin with the singular forms. Okay, we have je vendre,
Je vends.
je vends, not vendre. So for the vendre, you drop the RE and you add S for je vends. This is RE verbs, not ER, okay? So je vends,
Je vends.
I sell.
Tu vends.
Tu vends, you sell. So for RE verbs, for je, I sell, and tu, you sell, you drop the RE and you add S, right? We have ils vont.
Il vend.
We have elles vont.
Elle vend.
We have on vend.
On vend.
So this is ils vont, he sells. Elles vont, she sells. On vend, one sells. As you can see, there are a few differences between these endings and the ones used for ER verbs. Je and tu both take on a silent ending S. And il, elle, and on don't take on any ending at all. So for il, elle, and on, the stem of vendre is VEND. There is no S to be added or nothing. Same thing for elle, VEND. Same thing for on, VEND. This is why I said that it doesn't change, okay? The only thing that changes is for tu and for je and for je, you and I. You drop the RE and you add an S, okay? There are some similarities to the ER pattern though. The tu form still ultimately ends in the letter S, as it has with every verb you've seen so far. Il, elle, and on all share the same form, and all of these singular forms sound identical in spite of the spelling differences. Now for the plural forms. So we have nous vendons, which means we sell. We have vous vendez, which means you sell, which is formal / plural. We have ils vendent, which is they sell, and elles vont, they sell féminin. So let's listen.
Nous vendons.
Nous vendons, we sell.
Vous vendez.
Vous vendez, you sell, which is you formal / plural.
Ils vendent.
Ils vendent, they sell.
Elles vendent.
Elles vendent.
Elle vend.
Elles vont.
Il vend.
Ils vont.
Ils vendent.
Ils vendent.
Elles vendent.
Elles vendent. Okay, so what I just did, I played over elles vont, which is she sells. Ils vont, which is he sells. And then I played over ils vendent, they sell. Elles vendent, they sell. Ils vendent, they sell masculine. And elles vendent, they sell feminine. Okay? Just to see the subtle differences in the pronunciation of vendre. These ones are much easier to remember since they are the exact same endings that are used for ER verbs, which is true. Once again, the ENT ending for il and elle is completely silent. However, you might have noticed that there is a difference in pronunciation between the form used for il, which I just highlighted, and elle, and the form used for ils and elles. Well, not ils and elles, but il and elle. This time, let's go through it. The il and elle form doesn't have an additional ending. It's just ends in the letter D, which is silent. So let's play again.
Il vend.
Il vend. Il vend, which means he sells.
Elle vend.
Elle vend. Elle vend. Pronunciation wasn't good.
Elle vend.
Elle vend. Okay. Elle vend, she sells. The il and elle forms, on the other hand, puts an e after the d. Even though the entire ent ending is silent, the presence of the e means that the d in vendre is pronounced. Once again, if the speaker is speaking slowly and enunciating, you may hear a slight sound at the end. Okay, let's listen.
Ils vendent.
Okay. Ils vendent, which means they sell, masculine.
Elles vendent.
Elles vendre is they sell féminin. Elles vendre. Not a good pronunciation. I'll do that all.
Elles vendent.
Elles vendent. That's it. Elles vendent